Which damage characters need some changes from the closed network test? I'm going to jump right in and figure it out for you guys as we watch some gameplay. So, starting off with Pale Rider, I thought Pale Rider was very enjoyable overall, and I thought it felt good. For all these changes, I'm keeping in mind balance for each rank as a whole, and how the character feels, because feeling is really important for these sort of games, for people to play it. So, Pale Rider was really solid. It felt strong. It felt clean. The things that I would say about it, though, for the negatives, are that EMP grenade just feels kind of weird. It's been buffed a little bit, I believe, so the slow is a little bit longer lasting, so it's okay. I don't really think it even needs that ability, so I don't want them to go buff it. But it could do with traveling a little bit longer and a little bit faster. Grenade was solid, though. The exiting of the animation during Hades when it ends is really weird, and it feels bad just because it slows you down a lot and it literally stops your momentum, and it's just something like, yeah, you can play around it, but why are you just adding something to the game artificially that just feels bad? It doesn't need to be there, so they need to remove that. Moving on to turn A, Gundam. They covered most of the changes that I was hoping for in the most recent balance patch, which I made a video for. They made the grab quicker and they made it go further, which is good because it was rather inconsistent. It does need to be pretty snappy. We'll see if it's too strong. I don't think so, but it's a little bit snappy. And as I'll talk about more in these other things, it needs to have a change interaction with the shields, particularly Sazabi shields. GM and RX78, I don't have a problem with it being able to grab through, but on Sazabi, I have some complaints. And don't get all like, oh, hey man, what are you talking about? Why can Sazabi shouldn't be able to shoot and be able to be unstunnable through its shield, which I have a solving for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So just keep watching the video or skip to the Sazabi section. So, Moonlight Butterfly also needs to be less clunky, which they also covered. But the thing that I don't like that they did is they made its projectile faster. I don't think it needed that. I thought it was already really quick considering it lingers. Lingers and pierces. So it already has quite a hefty amount of strength to it. It just didn't need to be faster. I thought it was solid as it was. I was consistently hitting people with it. So I don't know. And I'm not even that amazing at aiming. So turn exchanges, moving on to RX78. Hyper Hammer really needs to not remove the ability for GM and Sazabi to shield. That's just ridiculous. You're getting damage with an ability that's the most consistent projectile stun in the game right now. Is the only one that felt okay and felt consistent and has a big hitbox. But it damages, stuns, and removes your shield. That's just ridiculous. Considering you could just walk into Sazabi's face and throw it at him and hit him in the face. Just too much. Like I said, should not remove Sazabi's shield for sure. For GM and RX78, I don't have any complaints. Basically, I don't really think something should be able to shoot through a shield when it's using it. Like, they shouldn't be able to shoot and use their shield at the same time if we're going to make that shield invulnerable to stuns, or resistant to stuns anyway. But, moving on. I would rather have the Hyper Hammer be like an AoE stun, so that if you throw it like down wherever it hits, it'll have like a stun in an area. Kind of like McCree's Flashbang, which is what RX78 is. It is McCree. Sorry, Cassidy. If I quit playing that game before they changed the name, so my bad. But yeah, like that flashbang ability. Then you could have some counterplay of like throwing it behind a Sazabi and they have to block it, or there's a little bit more flexibility to it. We're using it against things like Barbatos and Zaku, and that would make it more like flashbang. Also, I don't really like that when you ult and you die, like after you still die, the ult went out. Why does it end? It shouldn't be like that. They need to change that kind of stuff. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't change balance particularly. It just doesn't feel good. Yeah. So Asshimar next. Asshimar feels really good overall, to be honest. I only put it at B tier in my tier list, but that doesn't mean it needs to be changed. It has a good niche. It is powerful on certain maps, particularly Flak Fort Defense. The thing that I would maybe change is make its range a little bit longer. It doesn't feel like it has the best range, and it's a character that should have a little bit more range. It should be like not anywhere near GM Sniper range, but like a little bit extra past medium, or like just a little bit more than a little bit past medium range, so that it can fit its playstyle wanting to play on high grounds. Its ult maybe should get a stun time nerf though, just because. Like, while I did play a lot of Sazbi, I am looking at this as a perspective from a lot of characters, but Sazbi was the kind of character that suffered the most from like an Asshimar stun, just because an Asshimar could walk up to you, like set you on fire, and then ult you, and then just kill you, and you can't like predict that sort of a thing. And I want counterplay on every ability. Like, yeah, you can just guess it has it, but that's really high level stuff for ult tracking that other people aren't gonna be able to do. And it's just meh. But I'm not going to complain too much about that because it still needs to be strong. GM Sniper 2, they need to remove it from the game. Just kidding. But one shots are really rough inherently for a game, but they're not going to change it, so I'm not going to complain about that. However, the changes they are making of reducing hitbox size and potentially reducing the size of the bullet are good. GM Sniper has a huge advantage over Widowmaker in that there's no movement acceleration in Overwatch, so things move side to side way quicker, way more spontaneously, so it's harder to hit things, in addition to the fact that they can crouch. And when you crouch, your head hitbox moves a lot, and you can move yourself around in really weird like X zigzagging patterns, especially if you're Tracer. There's a whole really fancy thing about why that's really advantageous, because it makes the players like view isn't moving that much, so it's still easy to aim. But the other person looking at them, their head's moving a lot, so they're getting like disproportionate advantage. Yeah, so sorry for the tangent. So they need to make sure that it's not too easy to hit those headshots, really. Fire rate needs to be lower. It fires really quickly, and it could do with like a charge time like Widowmaker does. We can't ever balance GM Sniper just because it's inherently broken. But we can put it in a spot where it's only good on certain maps, and it's not as oppressive as it could be. So that's kind of where we want it. It's not a necessary evil, but it's an evil we have to deal with at this point. For Zaku 2, I don't think it needs any buffs really or much changes. People think it's weak, but it's actually really strong just because of how movement works, and when people get a hold of it and they learn it better, it can move so much. It will be everywhere constantly. And if you play with your damage properly, you can actually apply like a good amount of damage. You don't need the reload issue that people have been talking about. You don't have to really worry about that. You can one clip things. The cracker grenade I think is good. I just think it's because it didn't need it in the first place. It's already very strong without it. Tracer doesn't have one. It doesn't need one. But it's good for displacing things. You can like throw it on a corner, and when enemies walk in front of it, they can get pushed out and get killed because of it. So doesn't need changes either. It's not supposed to be this heavy damage thing. I can see maybe giving it like a sticky effect or something like that, maybe, but whatever. Moving on to Exia. Please, 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 can we stop having stuns on flankers? They don't need it. They already have all the mobility they want in the world. They can assassinate and kill things without stuns. Why do we have it? It's just absolutely ridiculous, to be completely honest. It's not that strong, so it's not as oppressive against a Sazabi as other things are. Like if an Exia was going to charge up and hit me, I didn't feel that afraid. But when it has its ult, it does way more damage. And if the enemy was coordinating and trying to burst the Sazabi down, they could do it easily because of the stun. But what should it get to counteract that? It should be able to cleave through enemies like Genji's dash. That way it can have more counterplay and would honestly be more fun. Yeah, and with the Barbatos nerf that they're doing and what I'm about to talk about, it would feel really solid and be very strong. Like Genji was originally when the game was first out, when Overwatch was first out. For Barbatos, the biggest thing they needed to worry about, I'm going to talk about it from two perspectives. Two perspectives of no fundamental change and then fundamental change. So no fundamental change. Nerf the range of the slams. They're ridiculous. Yeah, and the damage needs to be, something really needs to be worked on about that. It was ridiculous. I could see them, if they wanted to, just nerf the range of it and then not let the stuns stack. So you could hit and nerf the damage of the stuns. So you could hit your 2 stuns on somebody, but they'd be able to get up and escape as a second stun was coming out. And then you'd have to chase them down and attack them with your regular primary fire, which could potentially get a little bit of a buff. But what I'd really, really like to see them do with Barbatos is turn it into Doomfist. Old Doomfist. The problem with the way that it is now is that it can fundamentally deny a main tank, Sazabi, its positioning. It's much like Widowmaker and GM Sniper forcing people to not be able to play in large areas of the map, which is space, which is a really high level concept, but it's safe areas of the map you can be in. And it's really, really important how you play and win games. And Widowmaker / GM Sniper take like so much of it on the map without doing anything, just by existing. And Barbatos does the same thing at Sazabi. You can't play in the proper positions as Sazabi if you're playing against a Barbatos, because just by the way that their character is and how big the range on their slams is, it fundamentally counters your character. And you just die. There's nothing you can do about it if they play properly. And trust me, like I don't want to talk too much, but I'm a 4500 main tank player. I know how to counter these things. I was not playing against the most amazing Barbatos in the world, but they still, I know for a fact, can beat you just because they can dash into your body and slam you. And if you dash way early to dodge that, then they can just dash again. And if you dash too late, they're going to hit you anyway. So yeah. But that needs to change. So they should make him a tankier brawler like Doomfist that gets shielded by dealing damage and has some sort of displacement abilities. So that way you still have like an assassination thing where you could do some sort of a cooldown or like some sort of a combo like Doomfist has. It's like if they took old Doomfist and they took away his punch so he didn't one-shot and they gave him more mobility, is basically what Barbatos could be. But where you're getting shields and you're able to just apply a lot of damage with your primary fire and some sort of like minor stuns maybe, or like make one of the slams like a ability that pushes enemies away so you can help control some space and stuff like that. Be maybe like a little bit like an off tank. That'd be really, really cool to see. And it would still have a lot of what Barbatos is without letting it be this oppressive demon thing it is, where it's like, well, if it can't one shot, maybe it's not strong enough. And if it can one shot, well, then we all hate our lives. So also with some of these nerfs, they need to stop the locks of the animations for Barbatos when it slams. Right now it's pretty bad where if it slams, it's stuck in weird animations and like weird animation lock where you can't move your camera and it feels bad. The ult is really strong. I know people think it isn't, but it really is. It does 1200 or 2100 damage total if you hit everything on one target. So yeah, it's really, really strong. But I don't really want it nerfed particularly. So for Guntank, I know all of you have been waiting for this one, and I'm sorry for all the people who really like this character, but Guntank completely lacks a meaning. Other characters are better than it in every single way. If you want a character to do damage, pick Pale Rider or RX78. If you want a character to have a mass damage ultimate, you pick RX78. Yeah, Guntank's ult is really good and it's his best part of it, but it does nothing for the rest of the game. And why would you not want to play RX78 that has a huge value in addition to having like an almost equally good ult? For its res, it's pretty good, but it's really baitable. Like if someone dies and it goes to res real quick, people will learn to pay attention to that sort of stuff. So GM Sniper or Metis's res is better. And its displacement ability is kind of garbage. Its hitbox is really big, and it just doesn't do a lot of damage. So what are we gonna do with that? Two options. The first one is to turn it into Diva. Give it a damage eating ability to and not too much so that it's oppressive, but something that tanks regular damage, like the Matrix, like Diva's Matrix, and denies some of that. So it's like a little bit of a tank. And that's an option. And then it has displacement abilities and like a decent primary fire. That's an option. The other option is to turn it into Junkrat, which is just to take its primary fire and put it on like its secondary ability, a secondary like right click, and then give it its missile ability as its primary fire. And so just turn it into Junkrat. It's really that simple. Make it an area of denial ability character. It has the same ult. It has a mine-like ability where it can displace things. That would be really the best thing to do with it, is one of those two. I do really want to see a Diva character in the game, so maybe they should just make Guntank that. yeah, let me know what you guys thought. I'm sure you guys are gonna be angry. I'm sure a lot of you are gonna be like, hey man, this guy is so dumb. But just let me know what you guys think about this thing. Is all. If you're looking for the information that they posted for the patch notes, make sure to check out this video right here. Yeah.